Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Harmony Foundation podcast series, and I'm pleased today to be joined with Lauren Cabaldon, Clinical Director, and Brogan Rossi, Outreach Specialist for Akua Treatment Services, in Newport Beach, California. Welcome.
Oh, thank you.
So great to have you guys here and visiting us here at Harmony. You came on a great day. You never know with mountain weather whether or not we're going to get tons of snow or not, so you guys were very fortunate. We're really excited to learn more about Akua. I know that here at Harmony we were very interested when I first met you, Brogan. It was one of those things where you all have some very specific lines of service that are in deep demand, and we're going to talk for a few minutes about some of those. But before we, get into the specifics around your programming, I'd like to just ask you both individually what got you into the field of addiction treatment. Let's start with you first, Lauren.
Absolutely. So I am a therapist. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And when I first started as a trainee, I stumbled across an adolescent treatment facility called The Bridge in Orange County, and working with high school teenagers that were struggling with dabbling in drugs, but they were being ostracized, stigmatized, and of course they would come into my office, and the first thing I would say is, not what's your problem, why are you doing this, but I would like to turn to the parents and the teachers and everyone around them, so the elders. And I am a researcher of sacred rites of passage. And so I started to realize that we were missing rites of passage in contemporary Western society, particularly from the ages 14 to 18, when most of our adult clients now in treatment will say, hey, I kind of got stuck there, or something was missing in my identity formation. So for me, that's where the journey started. And then, of course, when any clinician that's working with adolescents, it's challenging, and you have to work with the adults that are, in charge of them more to get, good results. So that's why I started kind of transitioning to the adults, and then we have been with Akua for 4 years now, so that's been my journey.
That's a great story. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course. Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, so I've always worked in mental health, and I think for me, mental health is one of those things that I want to educate and advocate for a population that has so long kind of been forgotten and stigmatized, and I've always been really drawn to that. So I actually come from a background of eating disorders and moved my way into substance use, and I come from a family of substance use, so thought I was going to avoid it like the plague, and then kind of stumbled upon Akua. Actually, I used to work at Children's Hospital, and it just felt like a really good fit, philosophy-wise, and a lot of different types of treatment modalities, and since then I've been with them for 4 months, so it's still new, and I'm learning so much, but
she's killing it.
Yeah. I love it. And we love having you in the Colorado community. You definitely sort of fit right in. So that goes without saying. So it's been great having you a part of our community.
Thank you.
So let's talk a little bit about Akua. It brings East and West together to address addiction treatment. And you kind of alluded to that a little bit in your previous question. Can you talk to us a little bit more about the philosophy of Akua and how you've kind of created that program?
Absolutely. So Akua, the word itself, is actually a Hawaiian word. It means like the Polynesian gods of the ocean. Also means like higher power, spiritual recovery. So if you ever go to a Hawaiian wedding, they'll say, may the Akua watch over you. And I think a lot of times, especially in the treatment community, personally, I've seen a lot of kind of just resistance to the 12 steps or AA. A lot of our clients, alcoholics, addicts, the addict brain, it's very stubborn, very resistant. So I think bringing in a lot of different tools from other modalities is something that kind of opens the mind up to another way of doing things. And so if you say, the 12 steps is the only way, sometimes we lose a lot of our audience, right? So for me, it was just kind of the East meets West. It's like, okay, so maybe you don't have to do this talk therapy thing, but sit in this harp therapy group, or try this sound bath, Tibetan singing bowls, try acupuncture. You don't have to do much, just sit there. And so it's not necessarily the passive modalities, but it's the modalities that kind of notice and use more mindfulness. And, our goal is to really get the brain, as a neurofeedback specialist, my goal is also to get the brain into more of an alpha state, which is the state, it's the brain wave that we're more suggestible, like hypnosis. And, when a lot of our clients come into treatment, they are not suggestible. They know they can't keep living their lives the way they were before, but, they don't want to do it our way either. So it's that third way. And that's a very Eastern approach. It's a very Buddhist approach. It's a very be an empty vessel, like a Taoist approach. Don't fill up your cup, with alcohol, for lack of better words, but be empty and receiving. And that's really what we're about, So that's where the East kind of meets the West. And of course, we have psychiatrists, we have talk therapy, we use CBT and DBT as a daily structure of our programming. But the Eastern approaches, sometimes I have clients say, man, I had a huge breakthrough in harp therapy, just listening to her play a Nirvana song on the harp. And it reminded me of being a teenager and then this and that. And, that's where the breakthroughs sometimes happen, not when we're talking about it. And as a Western therapist, I have to really let my ego go in that regard. And that's where East comes in. So.
Well, and what's great about that is that, most of our clients who come into treatment have an issue with learning how to feel again because they've been so numb for so long. But when you bring in the Eastern way of thinking, it's very, very different. And it's, taking away the threatening feeling of, I've got to feel again. What does that look like? And do I have to burden myself to the entire group in a small group setting where it feels very unsafe, where if you do it in more of a Eastern way of doing it, people feel less threatened by it. So that's great that you've incorporated that in there. You also have, your program's gender responsive. And so your women's program is called Lonnie.
Lonnie.
Lonnie, okay. What's the meaning behind that? I'm assuming it's Hawaiian?
It is.
Okay.
Leilani is actually a popular female name.
Okay.
And it's funny you say so. It is gender responsive, and with that, I was even just talking to your CEO about the LGBTQ affirming and how we do that the right way. And as a Jungian therapist, I believe more in the anima, the animus, the masculine and the feminine energy. And what's interesting is I traditionally actually see a lot of women coming into treatment learning how to reclaim their masculine energy, and sometimes men coming into treatment reclaiming their feminine, getting in touch with their emotions, whereas women are actually getting in touch with not being the victim and having a voice. And so we really want to honor that. And so as, our women's facility, so Lonnie means heavenly woman, divine heavenly woman, and which I love because it really kind of connects them to the spirit, connects them to the stars above, and it connects them to the female energy that they might have been shamed for, what was taboo, or historically, the woman being crazy, being on their menstrual cycle and being psychotic, that crazy stigma is so much even worse for most women that are using or drinking or can't, fulfill their obligations as a wife or a mother or a daughter. And there's a lot of those pressures on women these days, and men still a whole other beast to deal with. But with women, we see a lot of that, and then coming and reclaiming their voice. So really tapping into that powerful female energy, that it's not something to hide or to be the quiet woman, to be the subdued woman, to have a voice, to yell, to scream, to express themselves. And that's really what Lonnie's all about.
That's fantastic. And it's so true, because so much of our women come in with so much shame. And you sound like you're creating more of a positive and affirming culture there for women, so that they feel like this is a place where they feel safe enough to get the treatment that they need.
Absolutely.
Which I think a lot of facilities forget to do that.
They do.
It's all very sort of traditionally focused. So.
Right. We separate the genders, but we don't really do different treatment for them. And our women's program director, Shannon, she's been with me from the beginning with Akua, and she is fabulous because she recognizes her role as kind of mother or sister, and how other women might project their insecurities onto her too. Because she's a tall, beautiful, blonde, strong therapist, and so we'll talk about that in the room and what that's like. And that's real powerful because she's real self-aware, and I love that in her too.
Right,
so.
Having the right people makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Huge.
So let's talk about your mental health program, which of course really piqued our interest when I first met with Brogan. So you have this really unique mental health residential component, which a lot of facilities, at least I know in the state of Colorado, really are hungry for that kind of resource, because there's not a lot out there that's specifically for primary mental health.
Yes.
Can you tell me, number one, why you all opted to move in that direction, and then two, what is somebody going to expect if they were to come into that mental health program?
Absolutely. Well, I said this to you earlier, but I'll say it again. Kind of, we're not really treating the disorders; we're treating the trauma that led to it. Meaning, eating disorder, personality disorder, attachment disorder, substance use disorder, and we believe that everything starts with an attachment, an unhealthy attachment, an insecure attachment, and so the mental health piece, we're already treating those patients within our walls, right? It really is just kind of is driven by what insurance will authorize as well, and we understand that, but we did have those clients already kind of within our walls, but we started to notice that as kind of more of a psychodynamic facility, we are well poised to treat mental health in a really safe and loving way. I think a lot of, I won't really say this in a blanket statement, but a lot of substance abuse treatment facilities kind of just use the 12 steps as their kind of modality, or kind of use CBT or DBT, and it's all well and good, but it kind of misses a lot of the clients that maybe don't really feel like they have an addiction. I've seen a lot of clients that come in that they were just kind of using that to be okay in their environment. And I always say, a lot of times when people start using, it's actually a healthy response to an unhealthy environment. A 14-year-old will put a needle in his arm because mom and dad are fighting and he's being triangulated, and he can't feel safe in that home. So in that moment, he puts the opiates in his veins. I mean, he feels calm, safe. He's treating himself. And so substances aside, we're looking at the depression, the anxiety, and I'm not trying to get rid of the bipolar symptoms, the depression symptoms, even the personality disorders. I want to listen first and foremost to what those symptoms are saying. There's a reason they're there. And while we work with our psychiatrists and do a lot of different modalities, we, I think, are poised as that psychodynamic facility, and we were doing it really well, I think, already in substance abuse before we had our mental health license a year ago, to inclusively and safely treat those traumas. And I think it just became a natural order for us. We just needed to get, the licensing to really do it and take the primary. And in our area in Orange County in California, there's a lot of hospitals around us. And so we do get a lot of clients coming off 5150s, very depressed, very suicidal. And our approach of unconditional positive regard and compassion tends to do really well with that stigmatized population. So it just kind of just really fit for us already. We were already treating it without having the license.
That's great. And it's such a need.
It really
such
is.
A huge need. So,
it really is.
Well, Brogan, you've been sitting there very quiet. So we like to get to know the people behind the program.
Yes,
and so I'm going to ask you, what books have you gifted the most to other people?
I love that question.
Two very different books. So recently I've been gifting The Neuroscience of Buddha's Brain.
I'm actually reading that.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yes,
yes,
I am.
Yes,
I'm writing that down right now.
It is great. And I come from a neuroscience background, so that's like a really cool way to bring together mindfulness and neuroscience. And then on the other end, Harry Potter. I'm like the biggest Harry Potter fan. I've read it 4 times. So
have you really?
I have.
Like all of them?
All of them.
4 times?
Yes.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's impressive. Did you talk to Alyssa, our case manager?
No.
She's a huge Harry Potter
we'll have to just nerd out and talk about it.
Will.
So I gift it to everyone who's like, I haven't read it. I'm like, well, you need all 7. Yeah. So here you go. You need to read them.
That's great that you do that. So
very
just out
different.
of curiosity, why Harry Potter? I mean, what is it about Harry Potter that compels you so much?
I think starting it as a child and then reading it in different phases of my life, I mean, it's this way to like escape to this really cool, I don't know, magical thing that you you can kind of immerse yourself in, and you become involved in. And to read it at different phases of my life has been really cool to see how I'm taking it all in. And I just love the characters, to be honest.
You fall in love with them.
So that definitely is a gift all the time.
What's his name? Radcliffe.
Daniel.
Radcliffe. He's in recovery. So,
is he really?
Yes, he is.
I had no idea.
I had no idea, and I'm like a huge
fascinating.
To read more about that.
Yeah, so
more
that's
to read.
Maybe another cool thing about it.
Yeah.
And so, Lauren, if I'm going to play off the idea of the word harmony, what do you think it means when I say to live a life in harmony?
Wow, a lot of different things come up for me because, I've been doing a lot of this internal work on myself. I'm noticing that internally, personally, on a personal level, I've achieved kind of a state of balance, but then I step out into the world and, look at all that. Look at all that. That guy cuts me off on the freeway, and, the guy at the post office is taking too long, and everyone just wants to, looks like the world's conspiring to trigger me and irritate me. And, it's funny, I experience that with a lot of my clients. Like, everything's okay, or can be okay, and then I experience the outside world, and it's so terrible and traumatic. And so balance to me is that, maintaining that healthy ecosystem of not isolating, because we were not built and we were not born to be isolating. I truly don't believe we are, and I love that TED Talk, I forget who did it, about addiction and how the antidote to addiction is connection. And that's sometimes the last thing that a depressed or anxious human wants to do is connect. That's the biggest threat to their individuality, but it's the one thing that can help us really individuate. So that's the great paradox of being alive and existing. And so for me, true harmony is not just being, on this lotus flower levitating, in the middle of a lake, and being alone, because, oh my God, as an introvert, that's where I'd want to be, right? But then there's this super loneliness to it. It's not balanced. I'm not sharing what I have here with others. And so true harmony is really figuring out how to step into that space to me and be with others and still kind of be in the calm of that storm, but also letting each individual kind of teach us how to grow. And, Dr. Richard Carlson wrote this book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. And he says in that book, it's really just about kind of just staying true to yourself, and all the small stuff will just kind of come and irritate you and bother you, and imagine everybody else is enlightened except for you. That was one of my favorite chapters. It's like, wait a second. No, I'm enlightened. I'm doing this work. I'm this enlightened spiritual being. But when you look at it that way, everyone that pisses you off, your really codependent mother, or people, that, your boyfriend that's, telling you you're not good enough or this or that, they're all here to teach you something.
They sure are.
And, if you can flip it that way, make your problems into gifts, then harmony really can happen in no matter what environment you're in, no matter what relationship you're involved in. So.
That's a very beautiful response. I guess my last question is that if someone were listening to this today and they wanted to access treatment services at Akua, how could they get in contact with you?
Yeah, so I would say one of two ways. You can either call the admissions line directly. So the phone number is 833-258-2669. Or go to our website and check us out there, and it's akuamindbody.com. And Akua is spelled Akua, and then mindbody.com.
Awesome. Yeah. Lauren and Brogan, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us up here.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
I'm really excited about sharing Akua with the rest of the world, and we'll stay in touch for sure.
Yeah,
thank you so much.
much.
Appreciate you.